They thought they got away with it. The betrayal, the lies, the silence. They walked off like nothing happened. But something did. And now, life is speaking to them in a language only the guilty understand. One without words, without noise, without witnesses. Because karma doesn't always strike in public. It whispers in private. And while they're smiling on the outside, their mind is a battlefield. In this video, you'll discover 7 haunting signs that karma is already at work, not in loud explosions, but in the quiet unraveling of the people who wronged you. Let's begin. Part 1. When they pretend they're fine, and karma smiles silently. Some people don't break down after hurting you. They glow up. Or at least, that's what they want you to believe. The same person who lied, manipulated, and walked away without a trace is suddenly smiling on social media, surrounded by new faces, new places, and new distractions. It's like nothing happened. Like the chaos they caused evaporated into thin air. But deep down, you know something's off. Because real healing doesn't need a stage. And real peace doesn't have to be proven. This is the first silent sign karma is already working. Not through punishment, not through drama, but through the need to pretend. When someone walks away from a good heart yours and replaces self-reflection with performance, what they're really doing is bargaining with their guilt. Each smile, each caption, each overly filtered photo isn't for them. It's for you. They want to convince the world, maybe even themselves, that they're fine, unbothered, thriving. But you know what true peace looks like. It's still, it's quiet, and it never needs applause. What they're doing is loud, too loud, because silence would force them to feel what they're trying so hard to outrun. Stoics don't chase. They don't stalk old stories. They observe, because time tells the truth. And here's the truth. Nobody posts about their sleepless nights. Nobody captures the moment they stare at the ceiling wondering, did I throw away something real? They only post the distraction, the mask. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." That's your role now. To live, to grow, to become. Not to clap back. Not to compete. Not to wonder if they miss you. Because it's not your job to witness their karma. Their own mind already does that. And the biggest sign? They'll start glowing too fast. Too suddenly. The person who once mocked your depth now posts spiritual quotes. The one who ignored your heart now talks about healing. It's not evolution. It's evasion. But don't engage. Don't reply with your own version of, "Look, I'm happy too." That's not the Stoic way. Instead, embrace your quiet. Because karma works best in silence, in the moment they lay in bed, surrounded by noise, but haunted by the only thing that won't leave them alone, the truth. Let them smile. Let them shine. But know this, the louder the performance, the emptier the soul behind it. And karma? It's not some force that punishes out loud. It's the whisper in their mind that never lets them rest. Stay still. You've already won. Part 2. Everything fades slowly. When karma doesn't punish, just takes away. Karma doesn't always come with a crash. It doesn't roar like thunder or break down doors. Sometimes, it just begins to fade things out quietly, gradually, almost unnoticeably. What once felt certain begins to feel temporary. The people who used to call, stop calling. The luck they once had doesn't arrive anymore, and the presents you once offered, gone, irreplaceable. When someone betrays a heart that was genuine, they might walk away thinking they've won. They believe silence means weakness, that your absence is just space, not consequence. But karma doesn't need to punish with spectacle. It operates like erosion removing comfort, layer by layer, until they're standing in a life that no longer feels as easy or as warm. It often starts with small losses: a job opportunity missed, a friend growing distant, a plan that never quite comes together. They call it bad luck, coincidence. But underneath it all, something deeper is at play. It's not revenge, it's realignment. Life begins to take back what they took for granted: the effortless support, the blind loyalty, the safe space that used to wait for them, even on their worst days. You were a cushion they mistook for a constant, a light they believed would never dim. But now, without you, the world doesn't echo the same. They can't laugh as freely, they can't rest as deeply, because peace doesn't live where guilt has moved in. Seneca once said, "He who wrongs others rarely trusts himself." And when someone starts losing the things they never thought they could lose, their world turns uncertain. They second-guess every relationship. They question every motive. And deep down, they begin to feel what they made you feel: doubt, disconnection, abandonment. And here's the truth they never saw coming. Karma doesn't announce itself. It doesn't knock. It simply begins to rearrange the architecture of their life until everything familiar becomes uncomfortable. It takes away not just things, but feelings, the feeling of being understood, supported, cherished. And the worst part? No one else notices. From the outside, they look fine. But inside, everything is dimming. Let them feel that quiet decay. Don't interrupt it. Don't explain yourself. Don't come back to fix what they shattered. Because what's fading isn't just their comfort, it's their illusion of control, of being untouchable, of thinking they could mistreat something pure and keep everything else untouched. So while they smile in public, life is subtracting in silence. Every night, they lie awake wondering why things don't feel right anymore. That's not karma punishing, that's karma clarifying. And no storm is louder than the one that starts when a soul finally realizes it wasn't you they lost. It was the version of themselves they could only be when they had you. Let it fade and let it teach. Part 3. Echoes in a crowded room. When the applause can't silence their guilt. It's strange how guilt hides in the places we least expect. You would think the weight of regret shows up in solitude, in quiet bedrooms and long drives. But sometimes it's loud. It echoes in crowded rooms. It hides behind applause. They walk into the room like nothing's wrong. The jokes are effortless. The compliments flow. Their laughter bounces off the walls. They even look happy, or so it seems. People admire them, respect them. They still have friends, a career, maybe even someone new holding their hand. From the outside, you'd think they escaped the consequences, that they hurt you, walked away, and somehow life rewarded them with louder approval and brighter lights. But here's what you don't see, and what they can't escape. Guilt doesn't always show up as sadness. Sometimes it shows up as overcompensation, as the need to be constantly seen, constantly praised, constantly validated. Because the moment the room gets quiet, the truth gets loud. You see, when someone betrays a person who loved them deeply, someone who showed up, forgave, believed, and stayed, they don't just lose that person. They lose the version of themselves that felt worthy of being loved. And now they're chasing the echoes of that worth in every room they walk into. But no stage can fill that emptiness. No praise can erase what they remember doing, especially not to someone who expected honesty and got manipulation instead. So, they talk louder, smile harder, laugh quicker. They turn every gathering into a performance, but behind their eyes, a flicker of unease, the kind that doesn't go away even when the crowd claps. Because the applause isn't for who they really are, it's for the image they've crafted, and deep down they know it. You were different. You loved the unfiltered version of them, the vulnerable one, the insecure one, the one who cried at midnight and questioned their place in the world. You held space for their darkness, but they used that light to hide their own shadows, until you stopped showing up. And now, even in a room full of people, they feel your absence louder than any microphone. Seneca once said, "A guilty person can't feel joy, only distraction." And that's all the noise is: distraction. A defense mechanism against the silence of accountability. So if you ever catch yourself thinking, maybe they're doing fine without me, remember this: healing doesn't need an audience, but guilt does. Guilt performs because it cannot rest. And when the lights go off, and the doors close, and the laughter fades, they're left with the only sound that truly matters: the echo of a conscience they've been trying to drown. Part 4. You left quietly, but now you haunt them loudly. Some people believe silence means weakness, that if you didn't fight, didn't scream, didn't demand closure, it meant you lost. But you didn't. You walked away with composure, not chaos. And that silence, the one they thought meant indifference, is now the voice they can't turn off. Because real haunting doesn't come from ghosts. It comes from unfinished moments, unsaid words, unearned grace. You gave them that. You left without drama. You didn't post quotes. You didn't retaliate. You didn't ask them to see your worth. You simply became absent. And now, your absence is everywhere they turn. They sit in crowded rooms but feel strangely alone. They laugh, but it never reaches their eyes. Because while their lips say, "I'm fine," their mind is stuck in flashbacks, not to fights, but to your silence. The way you chose peace instead of power. The way you didn't fight for them, not because you didn't care, but because you finally realized they weren't worthy of that care. And here's the cruel part of karma. It doesn't punish with lightning bolts or dramatic consequences. It punishes through quiet recognition. They open their phone and stumble upon a song that once played while you were next to them. They watch a movie and remember how you used to quote the lines. They smell something, and for a split second they remember being understood, fully, deeply, effortlessly. They try to shake it off. They post stories. They go out. They smile harder. But that gnawing feeling, that persistent whisper in the back of their mind, that's not nostalgia. That's unfinished business. And you, the one they thought they could forget, have become a question they can't answer. It's not that they miss you. It's that they miss the version of themselves that felt seen in your presence. Because no one else holds space the way you did. No one else listens past the surface. No one else makes them feel safe enough to exhale. You weren't a phase. You were a mirror, and that mirror didn't flatter them. It revealed them. And now, they avoid their own reflection. Seneca once said, "A guilty conscience never feels secure." And that's what your silence did. It made them insecure, not about you, but about themselves. Because for the first time, they weren't able to manipulate, charm, or excuse their way back in. You gave them no door to knock on, so they talk in circles. They post vague quotes. They mention fake people and healing journeys, hoping someone will notice, but no one really does. Because the person they're trying to reach, already moved on. So let them talk. Let them spin stories. Let them try to forget. You don't have to haunt them. Your silence already does. Part 5. The cracked mirror when they no longer trust even their own reflection. There's a peculiar kind of silence that follows betrayal, not from the one who was hurt, but from the one who did the hurting. It arrives slowly, like fog over a familiar road. They tell others they're just being cautious now, that they're protecting their peace, that they've outgrown drama. But underneath the surface, something far more corrosive is at work. They no longer trust their own judgment. You see, when someone wounds a good person, someone who loved them deeply, forgave freely, and showed up without condition, they don't just lose a relationship. They fracture something internal. At first, they think they've escaped consequences. Life moves on. They smile. They post. They pretend. But one night, when the world goes quiet, they look in the mirror and see someone they don't fully recognize. Not because their face has changed, but because their eyes no longer believe their own excuses. It begins subtly. They hesitate to connect with new people. They double-check the motives of friends. They replay conversations wondering, did I sound fake? Or what if they're just using me? And when someone finally offers them real care, they recoil, not because they don't want it, but because they don't believe they deserve it. That's the work of karma, not as thunder, but as erosion. And here's the cruel irony. They once accused you of being too soft, too emotional, too trusting. But now, they wish they could feel that way again. Because what they thought was strength, detachment, indifference, dominance has become a prison. Every smile feels suspicious. Every silence feels like danger. Every kindness feels like a setup. When you betray someone who only ever wanted the best for you, the loss doesn't just echo in your life, it reconfigures how you relate to the entire world. Seneca once wrote, "He who has done wrong rarely trusts others, because he knows what he is capable of himself." That is the essence of this quiet punishment. Not vengeance, not divine wrath, just the slow, aching realization that you've become the very type of person you now fear. So don't envy their glow-up. Don't mistake their curated confidence for real peace. If they're constantly scanning every smile for betrayal, if they can't rest even in moments of love, they are not free. They're still in the cage they built for themselves the moment they chose to lie, manipulate, or abandon someone who would have never done the same. Let them walk through the world with a cracked mirror. Because no matter how many filters they add, how many followers they gather, or how many new people they let in, the truth remains. Once you lose trust in your own reflection, no one else can restore it for you. Part 6. Karma's perfect revenge. When they fall for a version of themselves. It starts beautifully. It always does. They meet someone new, attractive, magnetic, charming. Someone who seems to finally see them, finally get them. The conversations flow. The connection feels effortless. And they think, this is it. This is different. But what they don't realize, not at first, is that the universe hasn't sent them love. It has sent them a mirror, a perfect reflection of who they once were to you. It doesn't begin with pain. No, it begins with hope, just like it did with you. That same intoxicating high of being chosen, of feeling special. And slowly, that new person begins to pull the same strings they once pulled with you. Unavailable when it matters, hot and cold, affectionate, then distant, cruel, then sweet. The cycle repeats, but this time, they're on the receiving end. They don't recognize it immediately. At first, they make excuses. They're just busy. They're misunderstood. They're guarded. But as time stretches on, reality sharpens. they begin to notice the inconsistencies, the games, the emotional whiplash, and suddenly, they're right where they once left you in the dark, waiting for clarity that never comes. This isn't punishment, it's revelation. Because karma doesn't just return what you gave, it returns it in a form you can no longer deny, through a person you thought was different, through a situation that exposes your past behavior in 4K clarity. Remember how they dismissed your needs? Now they are begging for emotional connection from someone who keeps them at arm's length. Remember how they played with your heart, acted superior, mocked your vulnerability? Now they open up, only to be told they're too sensitive. They chase, they text, they wait and receive silence in return. And that silence is loud. It echoes with every word they once said to you, every moment they made you feel small, unworthy, disposable. It all comes rushing back, not as memory, but as experience. This is karma's most poetic move, to make them fall in love with a version of their worst self. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." But sometimes, the universe flips the mirror. It doesn't ask you to change them. It asks them to meet themselves. And now they do. Now, they feel the powerlessness, the obsession, the hunger for validation. And the person in front of them? They're not cruel. They're simply indifferent, detached. And that, more than cruelty, breaks them. Let them fall. Let them feel. Because nothing teaches a lesson like living through the pain you once caused. This is not revenge. This is justice with a quiet face. And you don't need to know the details. You don't need to see their suffering. Because true peace never looks back. Let karma teach what your love never could. Part 7. Unbothered and unreachable. When your peace becomes their punishment. There comes a moment when silence becomes a louder answer than any argument, and peace becomes the most devastating response you could ever give. It's the moment they realize you're no longer reachable. Not by apology, not by guilt, not even by memory. And that is when karma truly arrives. Not through chaos, not through revenge, but through your composure. They thought you'd always react, that you'd break, beg, or bite back, but instead, you simply vanished, not in body, but in spirit. The old version of you, the one they could manipulate, provoke, or guilt into staying, no longer exists. And now, no matter what they say, no matter how many vague posts they drop or rumors they spin, you remain unbothered. To others, it looks like you've just moved on. But to them, it feels like erasure. Not blocked, not shouted at, just nothing. No response, no retaliation, no emotional breadcrumbs for them to follow. And that nothing is unbearable, because now they have to sit with themselves, in the very space you used to fill with love, patience, presence. They scroll through your profile not because they miss you, but because your stillness screams at their conscience. They wonder why you haven't posted anything sad, why you didn't try to make them feel bad. They wait for signs of your pain, but what they see instead is evolution. This is the quiet justice that Stoicism teaches. You don't destroy your enemies, you simply outgrow them. You don't engage, you don't react. You become untouchable. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That strength terrifies them now. Not because you're louder, but because you've become untouchable in ways they never expected. You see, people don't fear being hated. They fear being forgotten, being irrelevant. And when you stop reacting, when you stop justifying, explaining, or even acknowledging their presence, it hits deeper than anger ever could. They don't get the satisfaction of seeing you broken. They only get the haunting silence of someone who rebuilt in peace. And that peace, your peace, becomes the punishment they never saw coming. Let them wonder. Let them talk. Let them dig through old messages and replay what-ifs in their mind. Because the truth is, karma didn't have to destroy them. It just had to let you rise. You didn't win by hurting them. You won by healing yourself in a way they'll never get to witness, and that's exactly what keeps them up at night. Final reflections and your 7-day inner peace challenge. Karma doesn't need you to explain. It doesn't need your anger. It doesn't even need your story to be believed. Because the truth quietly lived is louder than anything shouted. You were never meant to chase closure from people who fear accountability. And you were never meant to bleed endlessly just to prove you were wounded. Your healing doesn't need their applause, only your permission. Let karma do what karma does. Let them run loud while you walk in silence. And now, your challenge. Let go of the urge to check on those who hurt you. Say nothing when you're provoked. Let silence protect your dignity. Release the need to explain yourself or be understood. Guard your peace like it's sacred. Learn to observe rather than react. Spend time alone to reconnect with your own stillness. And most importantly, forgive yourself for staying too long in places your soul had already outgrown. If this message spoke to you, leave a comment below with the line that hit you hardest. Tap like to let the algorithm know this truth matters. And subscribe to Petals of Stoicism, where your silence becomes your strength and your stillness becomes your strategy. The people who hurt you aren't your burden to carry, but your peace, that's your power.